All right, friends. Well, this is Andy Irvine, and I'm here at Sadowsky, Germany with my good friend Lars Lehmann.
Hi, guys.
And we're doing a series of videos to kind of talk about different things, technique and warm-ups, and just how we kind of came to have the styles that we have as bass players and our experiences in the business for all these years. And in this video, I thought it would be fun to do a little challenge. And this is going to be kind of hard because we as bass players tend to have our musical journey is a synergy of many, many different things. But my challenge to you, Lars, is can you summarize what makes you in your playing in a very short way and tell us what is the core of your musicality?
Wow, that's a tough one, man. A great part of my playing is just holding the groove down and, you know, what you would call bread and butter playing. And there's so much you can do while, for instance, playing eighth notes, right? I grew up as an 70s and 80s kid, growing up to Deep Purple, Whitesnake, Uriah Heep, you know, all those great rock bands, Led Zeppelin, Alice Cooper, the old Queen, stuff like that. So I really got like the full injection of the whole rock thing. And what that is based on usually, as far as bass is concerned, is playing eighth notes, right? So there's a lot of stuff you can do while playing eighth notes. Like you can do the legato eighth notes, like this. Right? And I'm not sure if you guys saw that, but I'm playing with one finger, even if I could play with two fingers. But I like to play it with one finger, actually, you know, that sort of a Jamerson thing, because it's a little bit more even, you know. Try to make it as even as possible. But then again, also you can choose from maybe staccato notes like this. And that's where I will lift up my finger right after playing my desired note, right? So I'm doing, not sure if you can see this, guys. So, and if you want less fret noise, you can do it like this. Put your other fingers before the finger that's actually playing the note. This, you have a little bit of a muting sound.
Do you agree that you could play that stuff all day long and never ever get bored and just be super happy?
Yeah,
it's those kind of grooves, those I call them pounding eighth note grooves.
Yeah.
One of the most fun things you can do with a bass guitar.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
please
absolutely.
continue.
Yeah, I totally agree. Couldn't agree more, really. And if you hate playing eighth notes or holding the groove down, you should probably consider another instrument. I'm not really, or consider a career as a solo bass player or so. You know, I really love that kind of stuff, and you know, my clients love me for loving that. So obviously, there's another type of eighth notes, which is a combination of the staccato and the legato, which would be short, right? So like duck, da, duck, da, duck, da. So if I put that into a groove, I'm also putting a little bit more volume and power into my short notes. So I would be going duck, da, duck, da, which creates this sort of pumping effect, like. Right? And that is also a very, very useful way of playing eighth notes. And it wasn't until much, much later that I realized that it was actually used by guys like Larry Graham way back in the 60s, right? He would do.
That accenting and that dynamic, having strong dynamic, light dynamic, strong dynamic, that kind of stuff, that is like what I call like inertia. It's like pushing the track forward. It's propulsion. There can be an eighth note groove that's just kind of sitting there laying there doing nothing, or there can be an eighth note groove that's got that propulsion.
Totally.
So the subtle nuances of what you just explained are definitely critical factors. It's safe to say that your heart beats the hard rock stuff at the core.
I would say, I'm on the one side I'm a rock guy, on the other side I'm a slapping guy, because I also grew up on Jonas Halbach, Mark King, level 42, all that flashy slap stuff. I love guys like Louis Johnson and Larry Graham. Tend to love them much more than some modern flashy players. I tend to gravitate towards the guys that I grew up with.
Will you show us some of your vocabulary, the way that you speak with your slap style? Just play a little bit for us.
Yeah, sure.
Show us some of your moves.
Yeah. So basically, a lot of that stuff is not that complicated compared to like if you have a guy like a Mark King who will go, But what I like to do is use some as some sort of spice, within my groove. Because I was probably one of the first guys in Germany to imply the double thumping thing into my playing. I'm not saying I was the first guy, but I was definitely one of the first guys, like way back in the 90s when like the first Bass Extremes songbook came over here. So I started to practice, my... First of all, I did something like this. Right? Using my thumb as if it were a plectrum. I would do stuff like that, grooves that I would play with a pick usually. Right, and then after that I would also bring in my my pluck like this. Yeah. Doing this. And I took that to a point where I actually, as far as my thinking is concerned while playing, I'm only throwing my hand towards the string and I'm getting like 3 notes out of that. Like, there's no way, because I've done it so much, that I can not get 3 notes of that.
I noticed some of the time you're doing it, those triplets, you're inserting those triplets into your groove here and there and everywhere, and you're kind of sprinkling them in at will. It's a deliberate, but it's kind of a random way, like wherever it feels good, you throw it in.
So for instance, what I like to do there is this little movement here. So I'm playing like the fat E string, and now that my thumb is down, I'm going up, pluck, that note with my thumb, right? So it would be... Right? So that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and my journey is not unlike yours in the sense that I have my heart beats with that hard rock and metal eighth note pulse of just being a meat and potatoes solid driving bass player, and really putting a lot of energy into it and making the delivery really solid. Because back in those days, the guys that we were listening to, Pete Way and just all those guys, Steve Harris and even Ian Hill with Judas Priest playing with the jazz bass with the pick, and Cliff Williams from AC/DC, and the list goes on and on and on and on. They were doing those eighth note grooves, but they weren't just boom, boom, boom. They weren't just like doing it in a kind of a sissy way.
It was like a statement, right?
Yeah, they were pounding them out with ferocity. So that's a cornerstone in my makeup of my style.
Right, because you're doing like tons of rhythm and blues gigs at your home, right?
Yeah, I am.
So what is like the core of your playing? You've mentioned this thing, funky bubbling. What is that?
Okay, it's safe to say that the nucleus of my style is rooted in bad technique. and I'm going to explain why. Because typically, proper technique, we've talked about it, would be that the thumb would be kept in the middle of the back of the neck, and as you shifted positions, you would move your thumb and you would keep it pretty much in the middle of the back of the neck.
Right.
And then you would probably identify or assign one finger per fret. Right? That would be the general.
That's what they teach you in music
That's
schools,
the generalized
you know?
proper way. But I don't do it like that. Some of the time I have my thumb behind the neck, but some of the time I'm reaching over and I'm muting the lower strings with my thumb. And this is why. So let me just play a little bit first. Sure. I'll just give an example of me being me.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Okay, everything that I just did there encompasses all of what makes me me. I'll explain to you what I'm talking about. So what I found with like coming over with the thumb was that helps me mute and only hear the notes that I want to be heard, meaning I don't hear the clickety-clackety rattling of the lower strings when I'm playing on the higher strings. So that was why I started reaching over with my thumb some of the time.
But in that way, it's not really like bad technique, right? It's adopting a technique, bringing in a technique that you need in order to prevent those open strings from ringing.
It's serving a purpose.
So it's actually very good technique.
Yeah,
in a way.
Well,
right?
Thank you. I think so. I mean, I've always thought I was right, but the other thing that happens when you have your thumb, or can happen when you have your thumb like this, is it creates this position where you have your thumb in the middle of the back of the neck, and your fingers are kind of coming out and then around and then back, and you get these curves.
Yeah.
I don't do that. My fingers are laying across. They're just literally laying on the fingerboard a lot of the time. And what I will do is I'm always trying to like kind of do these short glissandos.
Yeah, slurs.
And, slurs and short glissandos and this kind of greasy stuff. When I did that lick right there, the proper... right? That would be the proper way. Yeah. But I use these parts of my fingers to fret it. You know, I'm not, and it's even a little bit sloppy, and you're hearing a little bit of fret buzz and everything like that. But to me, that sounds more greasy and more funky and more natural to have a little bit of the sloppy stuff in there.
Yeah.
To give it some personality. So that's a big part of it, is the left hand with the fingers laying down. And another kind of key component to what makes me is that my third finger, I don't use it as much. It's just never been as strong. So I tend to use my pinky a lot. So like if it's like a box pattern or something where it's like, I'm inclined to use the pinky for for 3 frets,
like an upright player would do, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because it caused me less fatigue. And if it hurt really bad, I found a different way to do it where it didn't hurt. You know what I mean? Like when I was learning how to play, I was just like, that would hurt. I need to find another way to do it where it doesn't hurt, you know? And it served me well because I've never had any pain in my hands or anything. I've never had any carpal tunnel or anything like that. Switching to the right hand, if I'm like breaking down the components of what makes me, a lot of it is in the right hand. And they say, what is that saying they say? It's like, you know, your left hand shows what you know, and your right hand shows who you are.
Right.
In bass playing.
Right.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, what I'll do is a huge variety of different dynamic levels with the right hand. Sometimes stabbing, where I'm pushing down on the string. Sometimes where I'm grabbing it with the soft...
Touching the string very gently.
With the soft pads. And sometimes I'll mimic the sound of popping, but I'll essentially be trying to play slap bass without playing slap bass. So that's this thing that happens. Right? I'm exaggerating it.
Yeah.
But when I put it all into my flow, it's a little of this and a little of that. And another thing that happens as a result of the fingers laying on the fingerboard like this is that when I go to do the ghosting, a muted note, anticipating the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can put like a triplet anticipation. That's a big component of what I'm constantly doing, throwing those things in. You were doing it with the slap thing.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing this left hand fingers laying across the fingerboard kind of thing, there's another thing that happens is that when I do try to incorporate some of those ghost notes, a little bit of harmonic content, those high-pitched harmonics start to squeak through.
Yeah, why don't you show our viewers where those harmonics actually are on the fretboard? Yeah, so they're based around the 5th and the 3rd fret.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
But a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were
those are like the strongest ones.
Yeah, if you were
in
thinking,
that area?
if you were thinking above the 5th and the dominant 7th and the octave.
Yeah.
But the 4 is certainly there.
Yeah.
Now, those aren't the pitches associated with those notes, but those are pitches that kind of work in a magical way, the way that they sprinkle in in an unplanned way. And they become part of the fabric of what makes it sound like me, what I think makes it sound like me. And then the other thing is that vibrato. And I use a variety of it at all times, and sometimes it's like everything from like a gentle nudge or, I mean, that's different than this. I mean, it's just a little nudge, but it makes a big difference in the scheme of the whole picture, you know? So, and then there might be times where it's like,
it's like very bluesy.
Yeah. And the final component, I think probably is the grease, you know, where you're kind of greasing. Verdine does that a lot.
Yeah.
That's who I got it from, was Verdine.
Those shakers.
Shakers. That's a good way to call it.
Yeah.
So you're taking the pitch and you're kind of coming from behind the fret slightly to in front of the fret slightly. But it's even faster than that. It's just boing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a vibra slap.
Right. And I think it's important to mention that you're keeping your thumb in that very position, right? You're not lifting it up behind the neck while doing that. You're not doing like.
No.
Nope. It's this, right?
No, I got to hold on.
Yeah.
I got to stay holding on.
Yeah.
As soon as I take my thumb off, I feel like I'm out in no man's land. So I always keep my thumb on. Sometimes it's improperly over the top, but it's always connected in some kind of a way.
Yeah.
So that kind of is the nucleus of my, you know, my vocabulary or my personal style. It's greasy, it's bluesy. It's got that. I kind of think of the dynamic ladder. This is a good thing to explain to everybody, is that I think of the dynamics when we talk about dynamics. Initially, we might think that there's the soft dynamic and there's the loud dynamic, meaning there's two different things. But I don't think of it that way. I think of it as the dynamic. There's a ladder, and you know how a ladder has many runs.
It's a whole range.
It's a whole range. I'm consistently and continuously and constantly jumping around that dynamic ladder, sometimes digging in really hard for a millisecond and coming back down, sometimes in the middle. You know, I'm just constantly jumping around on that dynamic ladder, and that's all coming from the right hand.
Yeah.
That dynamic piece is what makes all those other mechanical pieces come together, make them work, because it creates accents and it creates syncopations, and making the syncopation either stand out or make the syncopation just be kind of like in the background and stuff like that.
Well, man, that was super interesting, and I really love the stuff that you're doing. Thank you for showing that to me and showing it to us. There you have it, people. That's the core of Andy's and Lars is playing. If you liked what you saw and heard, please hit the like and subscribe and share buttons. Hit the bell for notifications on new videos. We have new content coming up every week. If you want to find out more about Sadowsky basses, go to sadowskybass.com or check out this amazing bunch of videos that we have out there on our channel. That's it from Lars and
Andy. We'll see you next time.
See ya, guys. Bye-bye.
Peace.